or trade in securities, and these securities could be shares or equities or stocks or treasury bonds, treasury bills, and the like. Of course, these are regulated by the Capital Markets Authority in Uganda and other agencies like the Financial Intelligence Authority and, of course, the government of Uganda. And therefore, right now, we would like to, first of all, before we go into our deeper details of what's happening on the financial markets scene, I would like to look at the stock markets, first of all, and what's currently trending. We would think, of course, of the Uganda Securities Exchange first. Now, just to give you a little brief background of the Uganda Securities Exchange, it was incorporated in 1997 as a company limited by guarantee without, of course, a share capital, and is the principal stock exchange of Uganda, the Republic of Uganda. It was established as a result of government's policy of transforming the country's economy from a public to that of a private sector basis. The Uganda Securities Exchange offers an organized market where buyers and sellers of securities meet as dealers, or actually brokers represent them to acquire and or sell securities such as equity shares and, of course, treasury bonds and treasury bills. As an alternative source of investment capital for small and large enterprises, the Uganda Securities Exchange represents a link between companies with capital needs and, of course, the general public with savings to invest, allowing these investors to become part owners of the listed companies on the exchange. In, of course, October 2003, the Uganda Securities Exchange launched the Uganda Securities All Share Index, that is the ALSI, and a market-weighted average index comprising all the listed, of course, stocks on the bourse, and of course, this All Share Index, of course, that was initiated by the Uganda Security Exchange, publishes the Uganda Security Exchange Local Companies Index, which tracks the performance of domestic equities on the exchange. Now, in July 2015, the Uganda Security Exchange implemented, of course, an automated trading system and a computerized-based trading application set up to automatically buy and sell securities. This, along with new central securities depository systems, improved liquidity and trade efficiencies by reducing the settlement time from 5 to 3 days. And of course, that's a brief background of the Uganda Securities Exchange, where, of course, this data that we give you is coming from. It is courtesy of the Uganda Securities Exchange. And of course, we have 18 listed companies, and on these listed companies, we have 10 locally listed and 8 cross-listed, mainly from the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Buyers and sellers meet here on this exchange and, of course, buy and sell shares of these companies. And, of course, the companies gain capital, they grow and expand and give back dividends. This is the way how it works, and there's nothing really complicated about it. And, of course, now this morning, I wanted us to first of all look at some of the top gainers. But let's first look at this graph of how these stock markets have been moving. Remember, the All Share Index just represents the average movement of the entire exchange, all the companies listed on the exchange. And if we check out this graph here, we can see that actually the trend has been a steady one, starting July 2021, and of course August 2021, September 2021, October 2021, and November, all through to May 2022. And of course, right now we are in June. Yeah. Now, of course, you can see that we hit the highest point here during March, around March, at the end of March, we hit a peak of about 1,600. And of course, we have 1,600. Now, the AFX, that is the African Stock Exchange, has all this data. And of course, it is courtesy of the Uganda Security Exchange and of course the AFX, which is the African Security Exchange, which monitors all the African stock markets. And during this time, at around March 2020, that is the time we had, of course, the highest, the sharpest peak of, the all share index. And of course, right now it's been going down a little bit. As you can see, we are hitting the lowest actually around May 2022. And of course, now we are rising a little bit. But this is just to show you the average movement of the entire market, how it has been performing. Now, this morning, we have some gainers and of course the losers. I told you we have 18 listed companies, and among these 18 listed companies, 10 are locally listed, and of course 8 are cross-listed from the Nairobi Securities Exchange. And the top gainers of the weekend, of course, starting Friday up to today, we can see Kenya Airways, which is the top most gainer, gaining by a percentage of about 27.43%. To a share price of about 121.87. If you remember, by the close of last week, Kenya Airways was actually trading at about 118, which was a very significant drop. But as you can see, it has picked up to now a share price of 121.87. And that is, of course, an increase of 27.43%. Meaning for buyers who bought stock in Kenya Airways last week at about 118, they're making a profit of about 5 shillings for every single share they are trading. NMG, that is Nation Media Group, is another gainer on the market over the weekend. Remember, stock markets work even when they are closed. Our stock market in Uganda opens from Monday to Friday from exactly 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. But remember, we have these companies that are cross-listed, and of course, they have different time zones and times of operation. So they will continue trading despite the fact that the market is closed. That is why you see these price movements all over the weekend when the market is actually closed. But now you can see Nation Media Group is one of the gainers, currently trading at exactly 722.31. That is is actually 7.89% increase. Meaning, if you bought shares in Nation Media Group last week at about 670, right now you're making a profit, and that profit is up at exactly 7.89%. So you can actually sell and gain some profits out of your shares this morning. Uganda Clays Limited is another gainer who made a gain of 5.26% from, of course, the last week's 18 shillings. A company cross-listed from Kenya as well is currently trading at 318.2, and of course the share price has gone up by exactly 1.43%. Centum in particular has seen a steady increase in share price over the week and the weekend as well, and currently now settling this morning at 318.2. This is real-time data from the Uganda Securities Exchange, and it's dependable, and of course it is real and of course current. Then MTN Uganda is trading at 190.00 with a gain of 1.06%. And of course our last gainer for the weekend was KCB, that is Kenya Commercial Bank, currently trading at 1,234.62 at a gain of 0.2%. Those were the gainers for the week, of course, and the weekend as well, as we went by the Saturday and Sunday market. And of course the bottom losers were led by Jubilee Holdings Limited. Jubilee Holdings is a cross-listed company from Kenya as well, and of course it lost by 1.41%, and a share price now dropped to 8,360.71. East African Breweries Limited, actually Equity Bank Limited, is the next bottom loser with a loss of about 0.19% in value of share price to a price of about 1,446.22. That is Equity Bank Limited. Equity Bank is also cross-listed, of course, from the Nairobi Stock Exchange on the Uganda Security Exchange. East African Breweries Limited is another company that lost on the market over the weekend by about 0.19%. to a share price of about 4,454 0.8. Of course, those were the gainers and losers, but of course we have other companies that are listed. Now, the Uganda Exchange officially lists several types of securities, including equities, treasury bonds, corporate bonds, and of course treasury bills. And the table below now shows, however, the lists only of equities. Equities are shares. There's nothing really to fuss about. Equities, shares, stocks mean exactly the same thing. So we are saying that these listed companies are the listed companies on the Uganda Security Exchange that are currently trading equities. And of course, these include a significant number of cross-listed stocks, mainly from the Nairobi Security Exchange. Looking at other companies on the market that didn't have any motion in terms of price, we have British American Tobacco Uganda with the highest share price topping up to actually 15,000 shillings per share, Ugandan shillings for that matter. And of course, the change in the share price has not been witnessed over the weekend, and the volume, there has not been any volume traded on British American Tobacco. Moving on to Bank of Baroda Uganda, currently has a share price of 85. Sorry. Currently, Bank of Baroda Uganda has a share price of 85. And of course, there has been no volume or change in the share price. But notably is the fact that Bank of Baroda is a bank that is locally listed here in Uganda. And recently, Bank of Uganda, of course, lifted a suspension on banks of issuing dividends. Of course, this comes at a time when the shareholders in these banks have been questioning the banks on when and how they will receive their dividends of the year 2020 and the year 2021. Since July 2020, all banks had not been accepted. Actually, banks that are listed on the exchange were not accepted to give out dividends in order to have enough capital to recover from COVID-19 and other, of course, economic shocks that hit the economy. And so Bank of Baroda finally was released and declared a dividend of about 0.86, if I'm not mistaken, for every share at Bank of Baroda. So if you are a shareholder here, you look up to that dividend for the year 2020 and 2021. And I think dividends total up to about a worth of 25 billion for Bank of Baroda Uganda. Of course, moving on to Centum Investment. Centum Investment is cross-listed from the Nairobi Securities Exchange and is trading at 318.2. Of course, one of the gainers, as we mentioned before on the program, at a gain of 4.50. CIPLA, QCIL, that is CIPLA Quality Chemical Industries Limited, the only pharma that is, of course, listed on the Securities Exchange, is currently trading at 70. And of course, the volume of course, the shares that have been traded is a total of 1,300 shares with no gain in share price. Remember, notably, CIPLA last year returned to profitability according to their financial results for the financial year 2021. CIPLA Quality Chemicals returned to profitability with a whopping 50 billion Uganda shillings worth of profit. And of course, this was a joy to all the shareholders since it was the very first time since the listing of the company in 2017. And therefore, CIPLA shareholders will also receive a dividend this year of about 1.5 Uganda shillings per share in the company. And we've seen the share price go down from about 88 at the beginning of the year through 80 down to now 70. And this is a good thing for people to buy shares right now because CIPLA is a company with very good future prospects. As you all know, it's a pharmaceutical company that specially, manufactures HIV drugs and, of course, anti-malarials. But recently, there has been a drive by government to actually expand the capacity of CIPLA to start producing anti-cancer drugs, at least by the end of this year or in the middle of next year. So it is something I'm actually watching, and if you're an investor out there, CIPLA is a good opportunity for you to start with very good prospects in terms of growth and, of course, promising in terms of profit. And, of course, down to DFCU Bank Limited, locally listed here in Uganda, currently trading at 555. And this has been the share price for quite a while for DFCU Bank Uganda. Down to East African breweries, of course, one of the losers of the weekend, trading at 4,454.8. And Equity Bank Limited, of course, as we mentioned before, one of the losers for the weekend at 1,446.22 and a loss of negative 2.73, of course, right there. Then Jubilee Holdings, the biggest loser on the market over the weekend, is currently trading at exactly 8,360.71. With a loss of about 119.37 over the weekend. And then Kenya Airways, the biggest gainer on the market, from, of course, 117 to right now 121, over an increase over the weekend of about 26.23 in Ugandan shillings. And of course, this means that people with shares in Kenya Airways last week are making profits out of their shares right now as they trade. And of course, Kenya Commercial Bank, KCB, one of the biggest banks that is here locally here in East Africa, and of course, with its presence in Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and of course here in Uganda, is currently trading at 1,234.62, which is a gain of 2.46 from the share price of course, the weekend. Then MTN Uganda Limited has had a volume of 83,151 shares that have been traded, and of course a gain in share price of 2 shillings to a share price of 190 shillings per share. That is for MTN Uganda. Then National Insurance Corporation currently trading at 6.2, which is the lowest price on the market, and of course with any volume traded over the weekend and no change in share price. And Nation Media Group, of course, one of the gainers, as we mentioned before, trading at 722.31 with a gain of about 52.83 Ugandan shillings. And then New Vision Limited, a company that is, of course, specialized in printing and publishing newspaper here in Uganda, and of course, a media house. Is currently trading its shares at 155 with no change in share price for the past, of course, 2 days. And then Stanbic Bank Uganda. Stanbic Bank Uganda, of course, is one of the listed banks that is locally listed on the Uganda Security Exchange. Just like Bank of Baroda, they also were released to issue dividends of the year 2020 and 2021 worth 100 billion. And that is 50 billion for each financial year. That is for 2020, 50 billion, and 50 billion for 2021 for each shareholders. And of course, they'll be declaring the dividend very soon. But of course, they have been lifted, and now they can actually issue this dividend to their customers, actually to their shareholders. And then over the past weekend, over 91,000 shares have been traded on the market in Stanbic Bank Uganda. And down to Uchumi. Uchumi currently is not one that is actually very active on the market, and it's currently at the last time was trading at 8.21. Down to Uganda Clays Limited is trading at 780, actually it's trading at 20 shillings, but over the last 24 hours it has traded over 780,300 shares, which is the second biggest volume on the market in terms of shares traded on the market over the past 24 hours. Down to Umeme. Umeme Limited is trading at 240. Of course, Umeme, as you all know, is the company with the biggest turnover. Turnover literally meaning the amount worth of, the shares worth in terms of Uganda shillings. It has been the company with the highest, shares, being traded in terms of how much the shares are worth. Okay, not literally the number of shares, but the worth of the number of shares in the Ugandan shillings. Umeme has, of course, taken the mantle there over all the other companies with a trade deal of a volume of about 6.71 million shares traded just over the weekend, which gives it the highest turnover on the market. Of course, Umeme is a company that is a distributor, transmitter, and generator of electricity here in Uganda for several users here in Uganda, but as well as for distribution to other East African countries. So it has made its name, and many investors feel safe investing in it. And of course, this year they had a dividend of about 54.9 Ugandan shillings per share, which is one of notably the highest dividends declared on the market. And so Umeme Limited is also a promising company there for shareholders looking to start investing. And of course, you only need 240 Ugandan shillings actually to start trading. Now, the Uganda Security Exchange, of course, by the end of last week, that is on Friday, had a total of 7,666,747 shares, corresponding to a market value of about 1.641 billion Uganda shillings being traded. That is a total of 7.6 million shares, and the value of those shares, the market value of those shares that were traded last week was about 680,730,730. That is the amount in Ugandan shillings of shares that were traded on the market last week. And of course, compared with the previous Uganda Security Exchange trading days, that is on Wednesday, 8th of June, today's data shows about 689% improvement in volume, in terms of volume traded. And of course, the current market capitalization on the Uganda Securities Exchange is 21.5 trillion Ugandan shillings. That's almost half the budget of our country, which is about to be declared, of course, tomorrow. But it's about 45 or 40, actually 48 this time, around 48 trillion. And if the Uganda Securities Exchange currently has a market capitalization of 21.5 trillion, which is almost half of that budget, I think we're doing good, and we are heading towards the right direction. And of course, all thanks go to Uganda Security Exchange to make sure that the market is active and people are trading and buying and selling shares, as this has brought the market now this far to a market cap of 21.5 trillion Uganda shillings. Now, in the aggregate, 5 Uganda Security Exchange listed equities participated in trading, ending with 6 gainers and 3 losers. The gainers, of course, were led by Kenya Airways with 27.43% gain in share price, appreciation in share price to a price of 121.87 per share. This was followed by Nation Media Group, followed by Uganda Clays Limited, and then Centum Investment Company. And of course, on the losing side, we had Jubilee Holdings, and of course, which came out last with an end of day price depreciation of 1.41%. at Uganda shillings 8,360.71 per share, followed by Equity Bank Limited at, of course, negative 0.19%, and the East African Breweries Limited at negative 0.19%. Umeme hit the record highest volume, like we already mentioned, of about 6.71 million traded shares just over 1 week. You can imagine that. 6.71 million shares, each traded at 240 Ugandan shillings right there on the market. And now, of course, Stanbic Bank Uganda, that is, of course, a locally listed bank here, traded 91,000 shares. Of course, that was followed by MTN Uganda, which traded about 83,151 shares. Regarding the performance of the Uganda Security Exchange market indices, the benchmark, of course, of the Uganda Security Exchange All Share Index moved up by 8.46, that is 0.68% points, to close at exactly 1,252.03 points, representing a 1-week gain of 0.89%, a 4-week gain of about 2.05%, but an overall year-to-date loss of about 11.87%. Now, the Uganda Security Exchange Local Company Index, that is the Uganda Security Exchange LCI, maintained its value at 282 0.91 points, making it a 1-week gain of about 0.35% and a 4-week loss of about 1.26, and a year-to-date loss of about 12.86%. Ladies and gentlemen, that was, of course, the market as it was in Uganda. Remember, to get started with the stock market is quite simple. All you need, first of all, is your mobile phone. You dial *165# if you're using MTN, and then, of course, you go to financial services, and then you go into investment in stocks. Then the Uganda Security Exchange will, of course, connect you to one of the brokers of your choice, and then that broker will help you open a central securities depository account or a securities central depository account, an ACD account, and that account will help you to start buying and selling shares, of course, with the help of a licensed stockbroker from the Capital Markets Authority. That is as simple as 2 digits away. So this, you can start participating and use that, residual income. Don't use the daily income, but that residual income that you're not using to start investing. Remember, to dial that, you must be on MTN. But even if you're not on MTN, you can always approach the stockbroker physically, and you actually declare your intention of investing in the stock market. As you can see, based on these figures, we are not doing bad. Of course, not where we want to be, but at least we are not where we used to be as an exchange. And so it is a promising exchange with a very urgent need for local investors. The problem, if you can look at, for example, Umeme Uganda Limited, all these 6.71 million shares, you would find probably 90% of that was traded probably by foreign investors. And that is exactly what we want to solve here. We want you at home there in Chanja, in Nabingo, wherever you are from, to get your phone and start investing. This money will not be cheated. This money will help you in the long run. Whenever prices appreciate, you can always trade your shares and actually gain from your shares. Or you can wait for a dividend, which is declared almost every year for all these companies. And you can get that passive income coming in handy. Of course, given the tough economic times, one needs a passive income, surely, where he doesn't have to go to work every day, but at least receives some message on his account that you've received so and so much money from maybe Stanbic Bank, maybe Umeme, maybe whatsoever, So what are you waiting for? Get started. Use that saving to make you a little bit more money. We are going into a short break, but when we return, we give you the top stories that are making headlines on the financial market scene here in Uganda, in the region, and of course in the world. Don't go anywhere.